You haven't missed anything so far. Really, kind of just got started. Just a moment here, I'll explain exactly what I'm doing. Okay, so what I'm really working on right now is tinkering around with the stuff I just recently learned related to LOD, or load on demand. I can show you, like with the waterfall here, you'll notice I now have this single object here, just called waterfall. But then I also have these three other parts right underneath it, LOD0, LOD1, and LOD2. And then connected up to the parent object is this little part here called LOD group. And what this does is that as you get further away from it, you can see this little camera starts to pan back. And then once you pass certain thresholds, what it does is it swaps out the current model that's using for one that is far less detailed. And it'll do this again. And then finally, at the very max distance, there's cold, which is just, it gets rid of it entirely. But what this does is makes things a little bit more efficient. You can see I kind of chunked up the level, and some parts of it aren't exactly, you know, fitting together the best right now. But I'm going to fix that in a moment. But yeah, this makes it. This is puts less. It's a lot less taxing on the graphics, for one thing. Yeah, just makes this, you know, once an object just gets, you know, too far away for the user to notice, it'll just, you know, swap it out, and you'll end up with something that's a lot less detailed, but at that point, it doesn't matter. But it still saves on rendering time. So actually, let me just do here navigation. Okay, good. Everything's baking as it should. Let's just give it a shot here. Actually, one thing I also did, if you look here at the trickles now, you'll notice that their bodies are a little bit more, kind of wobbly than usual. You see the mesh that they have is kind of, you know, moving around and almost sort of like almost bubbling beneath the surface. That's a little trick that I did using, some noise textures, and all that it does is it slightly displaces the vertices on the model, and it's just a visual effect. It doesn't affect like their hitboxes or anything. And as usual, because I could change level geometry again, some of the grass is floating, but let's go in here. Turn off maximize on play. Oh, I think I see what's wrong here. And also pulled the window out of place again. Yeah. Need to put this on the terrain layer. Now let's see if this works right. No, I didn't want battle, but okay, I guess we'll do that now. There we go. Yeah, the problem was with how movement works. The way I have movement set up in here, it looks for an object that's on the terrain layer, and then what it does is it projects the movement value along the normal of the object that it hits. But since this wasn't in the terrain layer, it wasn't picking it up. Yeah, right here I have check ground status. Yeah, it checks for collision in layer 8, which is terrain. So yeah, that's why it wasn't working. Not to say that the shader that I'm using for environments really does make sort of stitching terrain together as pieces work a lot better, because these don't have individual UVs. You know, it's all just the textures are placed onto these according to their world space coordinates, and those don't change, at least while they're stationary. Yeah, if I move them up, meanwhile, you can see the texture moves with them. Actually, I didn't check if the water was moving in here. Yes, it is. It's moving. Okay. I've also been thinking going about designing the levels in a different way that I've been doing. Right now, I think I've been going about the whole level design process wrong. You know, I really shouldn't be so like, you know, making the terrain and all the details at once and then trying to, you know, mold them into something navigable. What I should be doing is starting with kind of simple objects that I can use, you know, to sort of create like just sort of almost like a template level from that, and then I can go in and start, you know, actually making all the detail and everything sort of around those. But this does give me a chance to test out the LOD features for right now. Let me think though. Yeah, I guess I can go ahead and just start doing that here. And just delete those because I don't really need them anymore. At least the individual LOD parts. I'll just go ahead and just place a cube. Oops. First, let me. Come on. Snap cursor to center. Says okay, location 0, 0, 0. There we go. Now I can go in and start just sort of building up a bare bones level. Try and match what I have so far. Also loop cut that. Face select. Okay, that's kind of a decent approximation of what I have so far, just for the sake of kind of representing it in this Okay, I got a question. Let's see here. The Klonoa project has been kind of on hiatus for a while. Ever since the announcement of the film, it's been I'm not really sure how to continue it. Because originally I thought the film was just going to be a retelling of Door to Phantom Isle, but now it seems like it might be a new story altogether. And, you know, if it essentially kind of knocks what I'm doing out of canon, then, you know, there's not really much point to it. And yeah, plus I've got my current project, which I can actually legally make money on. Hey there. I was just going over LOD here before. Hard thing to see here, but it's kind of hard to see at these distances. Let's see here, maybe if I just bring this inward. Bring this in. If you notice here, as I kind of move between these, the model changes. Yeah, that's essentially level of detail. It just dynamically swaps out one mesh for another when you get to certain distances. Oop, did not want that. There we go. But yeah, just a trick to save on rendering. And like I said, until now I didn't even know that Unity supported it. I thought it was I actually thought it was kind of specific to Unreal Engine. Because I tried looking up how to do this before, and I'd never seen any answers. And then I just watched a video from someone, and it's like, oh yeah, this is actually totally possible. And in fact, it's not even all that hard. You just, when you bring in a model, you just have certain parts of it that have the whole LOD and then, you know, 0, 1, 2 after them. And actually, you can add as many levels of detail as you want, it seems. I'm not sure if there's actually not sure if there's a limit on how many you can do, but for now this is kind of decent. Because I have, you know, the LOD 0 is the model that I have with the subdivision surface modifier taken up to 2, and then LOD 1 is with it taken to 1, and then LOD 2 is it with modifier off. So basically just the pure geometry. and also been taking the existing level that I have and trying to just sort of represent with simple polygons for now, because like I said, I've realized that I'm going about level design in just the completely wrong order. You know, I should be doing it with you know, the idea of, like, you know, the level geometry and how I want things to flow going first, and then, you know, adding in the details after that. Seems like a very basic thing, but then I'm not that bright. I just kind of stream because I, figure some of this stuff is worth sharing. And quite honestly, I kind of forget that that my Tumblr even exists most of the time. Plus, like, I kind of feel that's one thing to say that you're working on something, and another thing to actually show that you are. And yeah, that's another good point. I don't have a Twitter. I tried to use Twitter at one point. I thought the service was crap, so I left. And by what I hear, it's a good thing that I did too, because by the sounds of it, they are hemorrhaging users like crazy right now. Actually, one thing I was hoping I could go over today was how I talked about how I did the sleeves for the characters I've modeled. Yeah, but unfortunately Questy's not here, and he was the one who was really interested in it, and he's the only other one I know who is working with Blender currently. Unless any of you are interested in that. Okay then. I guess I can take a break from shaving all this out. The model's a little busy right now. Hide some parts of it. All sorts of different parts here I need to hide. Okay. Take it back into perspective view, and also get rid of that. And I'll also hide that. Okay, so if I just go into the... Oops. Come on. There we go. So, armature. And yeah, you can see right here I have the sort of arm bones, which are all sort of, you know, pointing outward like this. But then I also have these bones here that are going in reverse, and these are the sleeve bones that I use. I go and edit here, you can see they're a bit different. They are parented to the end of the arm segment that they're on. And if you'll notice right now in pose mode, I actually cannot move them at all, and that is by design. Actually, I can rotate them, but I actually don't need to. Because if you go here, I have bone constraints attached to them. And this one right here is called transformation. This just takes the target of the armature itself, and it looks for the chest bone for one. And what it does is it translates the X rotation of the chest bone into Y rotation of the sleeve bone. So you can see here as I move the chest forward and back, the sleeve bone is doing the same thing. And then also I have this other what is it? What do they call it again? Constraint here. This is just called stretch to. And in this case, what's doing is it's pointing towards the beginning of the arm bone that's attached to. And this is just simply what keeps it sort of, constantly pointing the way that it should. So essentially it gets its Y rotation from the chest, and it gets a rotation of everything else from the bone. And you can see here, I can rotate the arm, but the sleeve remains as it is. And then with this one right here, because I've already have this set up for this bone, for this one, all I need to do is send it a copy rotation. And this just applies it in local space. So it's taking all of the transforms of this one and just applying them to this. And then it's also has a stretch to constraint. And in this case, it is set to the beginning of the second arm. Here. And yeah, you can't really see it right now because it's a short sleeve shirt, but yeah, it's all just works like that. And actually, even for the base arm bones that I have right here, these also have a transformation attached to them. However, these are based on the center bone I have right here, which is the master control bone. I use this bone for sort of some advanced movement based stuff. Like this is what the root motion that I use for the attacks comes from. In this case, you can see here that if I move it to the sides here, Spirit's arms kind of, remain in their pose more or less. But then if I rotate it like this, then they come along with it. And again, this is all by design. This one just, well, it just transforms the Z into the Z again. However, but this sets it in pose space. And yeah, no, it does seem like a lot of work, and truth be told, a lot of people just kind of forego this entirely. They'll just have an arm bone, but the problem I had is that I guess because I had them like doing some rather complex movements. Sometimes if it's set to just the arm bone, like if it twists around in certain ways, then the mesh kind of comes twisted and sort of ugly looking. And in some cases it's only for like, a frame or two, but it's still something that I noticed. So, I elected to find a way around that. But yeah, bone constraints are these. If you're doing anything in Blender, they'll be your best friend. Like, there's also bone constraints set up for the eyes. If I go here, both these eyes are on a locked track, and they just move towards the eye control here. I move this up and down. That's what gets his eye motion. And then also the knees, use these right here. And then of course the whole IK chain in the foot is just pretty much nothing but bone constraints. And there's also one here set up with the tail. Because I don't want the tail to follow around the hips. I want them to be separate, but at the same time, if I'm moving the master control, I want it to go along with it. And actually, I also have one set up here for the head. And again, this is for the same reason, because I want it to the head to sort of remain where it is when I'm moving most of the bones. But again, if I'm using the master control, I want it to follow along with that. And I will say, it can be kind of tough to figure these out, especially trying to figure out like what spatial positions to use, because like with some of these it's local space, so some of these it's world space, sometimes pose space, and they're all different, and it's just kind of a matter of finding the one that works in most cases. It's a lot of trial and error, but I think it's worth it in the end. Let's go ahead and save that for now. zoom back in here in Unity. But yeah, that's all there is to this with the model. And like I said, I need to have the sleeve bones as part of the core skeleton here, because there's no way to really like add these on afterwards, because you know they need to follow along with these specific bones that they're parented to. However, with the hair here, it's a different story. If I just hide this model, you can see the hair just kind of has its own bone here, and it's just parented onto the head bone, and then it just has its own bone chain that follows along with it. And it's the same thing again with the chest, or the cape, which is parented onto the chest. Anyway, it's getting kind of late now. It's past the usual time that I stopped streaming, so I guess I might as well pack it in for now. But thanks to everyone who showed up today, and hopefully I will see you again next week, and hopefully with a bit more to offer. So until then, later.